And so, with 7 Premier League games remaining of the campaign, Aston Villa are absolutely Champions League contenders again for a second campaign running, beating Nottingham Forest 2-1 at Villa Park today. It's a huge result. There's no getting away from it. Coming into the match, Villa had won 6 games in a row, but playing a Forest team who we all know how they play. They defend very well, deep. They hit you on the counter attack. Villa have struggled against that. Previously this season, I'm thinking Crystal Palace at home, similar in terms of how they want to play their football, at least when they played Villa. But today, Villa scored twice in 15 minutes, really make use of the home advantage in the first stage of the match, really. They were full value for that lead and come half time as well. I mean, there was 2 moments where Forest threatened Villa in the first half, in a short space of each other as well. Hudson-Odoi and Alanga both coming relatively close to what would have been a goal to halve Forest deficit going into half time. That didn't happen. Instead, it was Jota Silva who came off the bench, a player who was developed at Vitória, Villa's sister club, as it were, in Portugal for many years. He's impressed there. Came on, scored against Villa, had space inside the box, which was disappointing, and then managed to find the far corner. I think his shot may have taken a deflection en route to goal, but Villa held out, and I've said this a few times that it's a test of Villa's mettle in these games. Usually it's away from home, although Villa won 3-0 against Brighton. There were stages in that match, as you'd expect, against a side who are competing for European positions and away from home, that you're going to have moments where you suffer, and that happened against Brighton, although they come out and win 3-0. Villa, the quality told there. Against Forest, they didn't extend the lead to 3-1. They could have. They had chances, Rodgers and Rashford at the end as well, to make it 3-1. That was my prediction before the game. It didn't quite happen. But 2-1, it ended. Murillo hitting the top of the crossbar. What a goal that would have been for Forest. Thankfully, just skimming the top of the bar had Marner's worried for sure. But yeah, so Villa winning against a Champions League rival, I suppose you'd say. Now it's 6 points between themselves and Forest. Of course, Villa's goal difference isn't great. It's now back to 0. It's not quite into the anywhere near really where it needs to be to finish above a side level on points, if that makes sense. They're level on City as I do this walk and talk, but goal difference is going to, well, hopefully not hamper them come the end of the campaign, but at the moment that's what is going to separate them. They're 1 point away from Chelsea. Sorry about the wind, in 5th, and as I said, Forest 6 points now, which isn't unsurmountable at all. Forest do have a decent set of fixtures, but it all depends now about how they recover mentally. Something I spoke about in the pre-match podcast. They've had such a good run of it. Now they've lost 4 out of 5 away from home, and maybe some cracks starting to appear there. They're without a striker at the moment too. Awani not playing today. Instead it was Hudson-Odoi, Alanga kind of providing the attacking threat. Gibbs White too, of course, great player. But I thought Villa dealt with it pretty well in the first half. They had to have their line spot on. Emery decided to change Garcia for Konsa in the second half. Villa, I don't think, looked as assured as they did in the first half. In the second half as they did in the first. Kamara came on, and again I think really helped kind of steady the ship a little bit as well. On that, and that's probably one of the big talking points, that Emery made 8 changes for this game. I was shocked and a little bit baffled actually at the time, because Emery always talks about how important the Premier League is, and he said after the game again that it's the most important competition that we have. All of that, and then makes 8 changes, and understandably, like, this squad is still very strong. However, still a surprise because you're playing 3rd in the division. Feels like next week against Southampton was the time to make those changes, but look, Emery's been around the block. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he got the calls correct. Villa have won the game. Forest were a little bit depleted and a little bit tired, I thought. Again, so this in the pre-match, that someone had mentioned to me that Forest, when they got over the line against Southampton a few weeks ago, they then go and lose 5-0 to Bournemouth. And to be honest, when Villa went 2-0 up, you thought, well, if they can get another, this could be anything. And didn't quite work out like that, but the win was absolutely crucial today. However, it happened. And as I say, Villa now have the opportunity in the coming weeks. You play Southampton, for example, next. 6 points this week against Brighton and Forest. Fantastic return. It's the maximum, but also against that opposition makes it even better. But that 6 points can turn into 9. You'd like to think Villa playing one of the worst sides in Premier League history. No, you can't underestimate them or do any of that lark, but it's a big opportunity. It's the best game you could possibly wish for. So hopefully that's going to turn into 9 points from these 3 games, and of course that would be 12 from 12 if they were to get the win, because they'd be Brentford in the only league game they played last month, and that would put them right among it. And then you've got Newcastle, I believe, after that PSG second leg. Newcastle, Villa maybe have the chance to go above them or increase the gap to them. Depends on who they're playing and what results they get at the time. And then after that, what you're looking into the final 5 games of the season, it sounds crazy. You're looking at City, Fulham, Bournemouth, United and Tottenham, and of course an FA Cup semi-final in there as well. But if you isolate it and break it down, you'd like to think Villa can beat Southampton. You then play at home to Newcastle. Dare I say, if you can then win that game, Villa are in a really strong position to then go to City. Who knows what will be on the line? It will be, it's not the end of the season at that stage, but if you go to City, will a point do to keep yourself in that mix to then playing Fulham and Brentford in those last 2 games? Tottenham and Man United shouldn't be playing for anything, or won't be playing for anything even in the final weeks of the season. Fulham and Bournemouth, it could be the same situation for them. They've done really well up until now, absolutely. Huge credit to Iraola and Marcus Silva, done fantastic jobs respectively. But at that point in the campaign, could it be kind of all but over their European aspirations? That, in times can help, hinder the opposition in terms of their playing with freedom and no pressure. However, Villa will be playing for something you'd like to think, if not Champions League, or how do I put it, they're going to be in the European mix come then. I think that's the key point here, or one of the key points. If you look at the table now, Villa are now 4 points inside the top 8, I believe, or the top 7 to Brighton. And a few weeks ago was the conversation of, well, are Villa going to get into Europe? They still need to finish above these sides, and you'd like to think that now they can increase that gap, or at least keep it in the coming weeks. So that's one big bonus. They look strong for European football next season, major bonus. But we know the Champions League is the blue chip competition. This is where everyone wants to be, not just for the nights and the moments, but also as a club. We've seen how much it's going to help Villa. Chris X saying that 370 million's worth of revenue there or thereabouts for this season. Last season it was around 275, I think. So it's £100 million boost. You need to keep bringing in money because you don't want it to kind of go up and then straight back down. I was running some numbers, and Chelsea without Champions League is still on 500 or something million, and Villa need to be getting up to those levels somehow. Champions League is going to be a major help towards that. So that's one side of it. Let's say the other side is the magic of the Champions League. We know what Villa are doing this season, how well it's going. PSG, of course, now on Wednesday. Honestly, I haven't thought once about the game. Forest was the most important thing for Villa, sorry. And for PSG genuinely wasn't in my thinking. I think it probably was. I didn't think it would have been, but I think it actually was for Emery, to the point of, well, we're going to not play Kamara. I think if we don't have PSG, Kamara plays. I think other players could maybe play as well, but to say 8 changes is something that surprised me. Again, Villa's squad is so deep and incredibly strong throughout that it doesn't make a huge difference. But I was just a little surprised to see us play 3rd in the league and not have your best player on the pitch and make 4 changes at the back. But again, Emery knows his squad better than us, and it's a very, very strong squad too. So I think that's something that would have been a major talking point if it didn't get the result today. But they did, and for that reason, you credit Emery. He's got a big decision correct there. Not the first and not the last of those big decisions that will get right, I'm sure. So beating Forest today, kind of wrap up a little bit from here, I suppose. A game which, going into it, I don't think if Villa drew, Villa's Champions League quest wouldn't have been over, but they would have had to have beaten Newcastle for me. And then you look at the situation after that. I just think if you break it down, as I keep harking on about, you want to have a situation where you can now win at Southampton and go into Newcastle with a chance to go above, or whatever it may be. But either way, have an opportunity there where you can increase a gap essentially, or go above. And with 5 games left, after that, it's this is a situation that I don't think many fans would have expected in literally the past couple of months, because Villa, there was so much traffic ahead of them. I don't think many people saw a run together where they'd win 7 matches in a row, but here we are. This is what can happen in a campaign. This is, as I said previously, when Villa won 6 in a row. That's the longest run under Emery. Now it's 7. Emery becoming the first manager since Ron Saunders to go undefeated in 15 matches in the league at home in 2 separate occasions. Of course, we did it, I think it was 17. Most of those, or in fact all of those, bar Sheffield United, the draw were all wins. Interesting that Newcastle, of course, with the team who stopped that run, they come to Villa Park after Southampton. Maybe one where Villa can extend it. What would that be? So Southampton, I mean, that's not a home game, is it? So I was going to work out the maths afterwards. But anyway, you kind of owe Newcastle one for that, breaking that run, of course. So PSG, Wednesday, Southampton, PSG again, then Newcastle. It's really exciting, I must say. The gap that is, as I walk now and talk, isn't a lot to 4th, 5th, even 3rd. The 3rd gap I don't think can increase now after this match week, but I think City, they're at United. Of course, they've got a chance of winning that. Chelsea have played Newcastle, and Newcastle at Leicester. I think they should win that. They'll probably go above Villa. But the key thing is that Villa are in such a strong run of form. You don't want to be playing Villa right now, and I don't think that would be affected even if they were knocked out of the Champions League. I don't think that's kind of an issue in terms of mentality with this team. I don't think you'd be thinking, this is going to disrupt Villa's quest to get back in the top 2 if you weeks up competitions. I don't see that personally. What's important is that they continue to prove themselves against the teams who are around them, and right now that is Newcastle, that's Man City, Bournemouth and Fulham. As they've dropped away a little bit, they can pick up, of course, but as you look at it now, I don't think that's a bad set of fixtures for Villa. Southampton, you'd hope that they can win, and then you've got games around you can get points from. And then at the end of the campaign, there's potentially 4 teams that aren't really playing for a fat lot. So, yeah, I think Villa are in a really strong position, a stronger position which maybe some outsiders might not have looked at. And even now you look at it and think, well, they're there, but there's an FA Cup, but there's a Champions League. Yeah, but Villa made 8 changes and beat 3rd place Forest, and I know they had a couple of issues, no striker, and Aina being injured, no Moreno on loan at Villa, but I think you've got to give so much credit to Villa to where they are now compared to everything they've had to do this season. In all the competitions they have had injuries. It's the first time really, apart from that Fulham match, where they've had a fully fit team, and that's kind of another positive, I suppose, from the night, that no more injuries again, which is great. But looking at the rest of the campaign, I guess, as a whole, you can only be extremely excited. And you look at other clubs like a Chelsea, even a Man City, or Haaland, and there's some still teething issues that they've got there, rebuilding really. Chelsea get some players back, but not looking too convincing. Villa, you feel like a really, really strong place.